So I've got here my old canoeing shoes. These are the Chota HYRB-800 shoes. And they were a little bit unique in that they had quite a lot of mesh on the sides. So the idea is, you'd be in and out of the canoe, in and out of the water, and then the water would just drain very quickly out of the sides of these kind of shoes. I've had them out for about 30 days of canoeing in total since brand new, and they have performed really well. I really like them, but they've also reached the point where they might not be reliable anymore. You can see I've already tried to fasten the rands back on a bit with this glue, but the separation is continuing, and I'm not sure how well I can even glue this mesh fabric. So for a longer trip, I'm not sure I really trust them anymore, even though they've been quite good. I don't know if they would fall apart on me. They really didn't seem durable when I first bought them. And I guess this is kind of what I expected, although maybe I thought even better than 30 days worth of canoeing they should have lasted. So as I was doing my initial search to see if I could get another pair of these shoes, I came across this review published by none other than Cliff Jacobson, the guru of wilderness canoe paddling in North America. And evidently he too had discovered, used, and liked these shoes. It says here he's been using Chota boots for 20 years. And at the time of this review, I guess this model was new. I got mine in 2017, 2018, around that time frame. So I would assume this is the same time frame here. And he calls out a bunch of features. Lighter and cooler than the Caney fork wading shoe. The mesh for fast drainage, which was the -- feature I had selected when I bought them. And he seems to think that these were durable shoes. I didn't necessarily find that myself, but overall it was a highly functional shoe. It really worked well. And so in other respects, I think my experience with the shoe kind of matched this. I'm looking at setting up something similar with an ordinary shoe, because these are discontinued. They're not really available anymore. There's hardly any old stock, and it's all odd sizes. So the closest thing I could find to this was a shoe by Astral in Salt Lake City. And it's just an ordinary shoe with little couple little grommet holes down here. Here's a look at that Astral shoe, the Tri-Merge 2 or TR1 Merge 2. Is said to be an amphibious hiking boot, which could be interpreted as a canoeing shoe or boot. And it's, but in other respects, it's just a mid-weight hiker with, like I said, the two little grommet holes for drainage. So, well, I thought I would give it a try. I mean, as at least a partial replacement for those HYRB-800s. So I threw a pair in the cart, and I went to check out. And so here's my shipping address in Canada. FedEx International Economy, $170. So that was a fail, and I had to move on. So the plan for this video is to cut some holes in a brand new, perfectly good pair of Merrell. I forget what model this is. It's not written on here anywhere. Anyway, I do like the Merrell because look at that. They still have a Vibram sole. And these shoes are not expensive. And the key with this particular shoe is that it is not the waterproof shoe. It doesn't have the Gore-Tex liner. See, I mean, I'm going to be cutting holes in it, so obviously I don't want to be paying extra for waterproof in the first place. So in that case, we're going to go ahead and try to cut some holes here in these little areas of fabric in between the leather. So hopefully that will be the least amount of compromise to the structural integrity of this shoe if I sort of refrain from cutting the leather and only cut this mesh. And in addition to cutting holes in the mesh, I'm going to try to heat and melt all the edges so they don't fray and stay loose. I don't know how else to kind of secure the cut edges. I'd like to use grommets, but I don't know that the shape of the grommets would really work in between, in the shape of the available holes in the leather that I have right here. So initially I'm just going to try cutting holes and melting the edges. There's probably a few different ways to try melting that fabric. I'm going to use this little plastic heat gun with a sacrificial metal tip here, which will give me sort of a pointed ending there that I can use to try melting the edges of the hole without totally affecting other parts of the fabric. Break it open a bit more and then try to trim it with the scissors. Okay, so that's starting to take shape there. These scissors are not great for trimming around the edges there. I might see if I can find something a little better. Okay, I haven't really been able to trim that up too well, but I'm going to try melting a little bit and see if I can get anything started here. I forgot to mention, but in this scene here, I'm using the handle of a paintbrush put in through the opening of the shoe and pressed up against the inside of the hole here to sort of push everything outwards a little bit and provide a solid surface on which I can touch down the hot element and neatly trim and melt the frayed edges. Okay, let's have a look at that. It's tolerably neat. So I got this little piece of doweling here. It may help me tidy up the edges. Okay, so I think that's proof of concept here, and you know, hopefully those layers are kind of bonded and fused together so they're somewhat reinforced. But the proof will be in the first trip. Okay, so just a little follow-up here. I had the boots out on a 5-day trip, 20 kilometers of portaging, so you know they got some good use. And I believe these little drainage holes worked and did not, you know, start to visibly disintegrate or otherwise start to compromise the integrity of the shoe. Edges are still completely solid and intact. This completely synthetic fabric did more or less fuse together and stay fused. Now, one trip, 5 days, of course, is not the lifetime of the boot, but I'm off to a good start. So now the only other issue with this is if you do step into an area with a lot of sand or small gravel or, you know, small particles, they will easily come in through these ports as you're sort of wading around in the water, just as easily as the water is expelled once you're out on land. The original Chota shoes that I had a mesh for this purpose. So this whole area was mesh, but of course the mesh is a fragile fabric and it really pretty soon got torn like that or that, or you know, it's separating there. There's a couple of gouges there. So in fact, these shoes were letting in sand and gravelly silt to a regular extent, and I never found it to be a problem, which is why I had some confidence that when I went to make these holes without any mesh at all, it likewise wasn't going to be a problem. At no time did I think that I needed to take the boots off and empty out sand, silt, and gravel. So I'm going to go ahead and call that a success. You know, everyone's got their own opinion on what kind of shoes or boots you should wear while canoeing. Almost no two people will choose the same thing. But this is what has worked for me.